This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
enough. You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
So I was sort of going about whatever it is that my life is these days, and I was just kind of having this thought. I was chatting to Blue, who's done this video kind of talking about how his feelings were hurt by the Giacomo Tourist kind of situation, and why it is for him personally that it sort of, you know, got to him a bit. And I thought it was a really interesting video. Go check that one out. But at the end of the day, one of the things that he said was that real playing can help to inspire people, and also, you know, honest kind of playing, and playing which maybe isn't totally perfect. And I totally agree with this. One of the things that I do when, you know, maybe I'm not feeling super great about everything, just go and put on your favourite guitarist playing live at a concert or whatever, and notice the difference when someone is playing live, doesn't have a safety net. What is that like? Versus, you know, what we see a lot of on social media and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's a really, really kind of, I think this is kind of part of the trouble of being a guitarist. And not only that, but I think that the real harsh truth is that we kind of compare ourselves a lot of the time, and this is everyone that does this, not just, you know, you or me in our bedrooms, but also the real pros. You know, I've met a couple of them, I speak to some of them, I've heard people talking about this. This idea that you're not really good enough does creep in, even if you're like an amazing player. And I just think that is the difficulty when you have someone that's maybe, you know, doing things that other people are looking at and questioning. And I think maybe that's part of why people got really angry about this as well, alongside, you know, taking other people's solos and all of that stuff. But I think it also kind of cuts to the core about what it is we create music for, and but also like this competitive edge that definitely creeps in for me and can creep in for all of us. But anyway, this video is kind of talk about some ideas around maybe trying to not compare ourselves so much, and why actually the comparison thing probably makes almost zero sense to do. myself, I'm a guitarist predominantly who decided that in 2015 I was going to quit doing a real job in order that I could put more energy into playing guitar. When I was about 14, 2003, I decided that I would quit taking piano lessons in order to concentrate more on guitar. In my personal life, the things that I do outside of playing guitar have been very, very limited. Around the age of 14, I would skateboard a bit. I would help out my dad on the farm. I lived in the sticks. I had a girlfriend that I played GTA Vice City with. But basically, I have a pretty limited range of interests, and guitar fills up most of them. There was a period, between leaving uni early because I didn't learn anything, and about 2015 where I did jobs. And in that time, when I had a real job, my guitar playing had to take a back seat, frankly, because when you get home from working, essentially you're tired. I don't know what jobs some of you guys do, but I'm imagining some of them are quite important. When I've spoken to some of you guys, there's some of you are working on aerospace robotics. Some of you working in the nuclear industry. A lot of you are doing actual jobs, right? Not just twatting around in your bedroom. And I think this is kind of one of those things that's really difficult about all of this stuff, is that, yes, I'll try and give guitar lessons, and I think that we are interested in kind of upskilling and stuff, but within part of this, there's quite a lot of comparison that goes on, and we look at a young guy's playing who's maybe 22, 23, and it's easy to forget how different maybe our lives might have been when we were 16, 17 versus now. And it's something that's quite stark to me, because in the last 2 years, Elodie was born, which has meant that realistically my time spent playing guitar has plummeted. Now, it is still my day job, so I do it every day anyway, but it's more a case of what I have to do is just fit in filming this stuff in the mornings. If I have a gig to practice for, then that kind of makes everything way more difficult. Do I realistically have a time to kind of continue upskilling and, getting perfect takes, going again and again, practicing the same thing over and over, or, doing 50 takes so that something really incredible appears? No. And this thing popped up on Instagram that kind of, reminded me of that in a really stark way. And it was this photo that came out. I just feel like a failure if I don't achieve a milestone of human creativity in the 15 minutes I have to myself each day. And it's kind of, that can be what it is. In terms of actually getting to play guitar properly some days, it might be 15 minutes, it might be even less than that some days, it might be 3 hours some days, but I think this is the reality of life for almost all people watching this video probably, is that the days that you are able to just sit down and practice for 6 hours and go, right, let's really nail down this sweep picking lick, I think those are limited. And even, when I was in my 20s, it was not until I had a steady gig playing keyboard that I was able to then focus loads of energy on just playing jazz standards and stuff. So I think this is the important takeaway from this, is that don't compare yourself to other people, because along your whole guitar journey, essentially there's been loads of other factors that may have benefited you or may have kind of made it difficult for you to practice. This isn't a therapy session, but you get what I mean. You don't know what someone else might have had going on, or privileges that they were able to practice so much because they might have been bored by almost everything else that they did. Privileges like growing up with both parents or whatever like that. Being able to play loud in the home that you live in, or having a brother who played drums and piano like I did. I swear that's got to be a huge benefit. Growing up playing in church, so that you know, regularly I was hearing music, I was getting involved in music and stuff like that. These are benefits. And likewise, you know, it's really hard to gauge from social media and stuff like that, like what is the level of work that's gone into this thing that they're presenting. And we have this idea that, you know, everything might be fairly spontaneous or totally spontaneous or totally improvised. But I do know, you know, some of the sort of like preeminent players, you know, I've chatted to, like, some of them might have initially improvised the solo, then they go back and they practice it to kind of get rid of some of the imperfections so that it is a more mind-blowing video. That's even like, that is totally fair to do, but it's also like a thing which is, you know, if you don't have time to do this sort of thing at home, you're going to be comparing yourself to something which is potentially unattainable without a load of time. And I think that is the difficult part with this, because, you know, I've, as I said, chatted to some pros that are like feeling really kind of down on their own playing, and people have these periods where it's just like, do I even want to play at all? And I think this is kind of that feeling that is getting a little bit tapped into by the whole scandal around the fakery and stuff like that, and people thinking, well, what's the point then? Or people thinking, well, anyone could do that. I think you try and get comfortable with the mundane aspects of guitar playing. Like, you're not going to sound 120% all of the time, and try and keep that in mind when you're watching other players play, and enjoy what it is about it that you're liking, but not thinking, right, I can't do that. You know, this is the thing that I think can help, is if you just sit down as much as you can, like regularly, and just try and be in the moment and super focus on something, then your guitar journey can continue. But your guitar journey is entirely your own, and there's not really too much point in comparing it to too many other people. Just one other thing to mention on this: no matter how much you think you might have achieved or someone might have achieved, you're never far away from being offered a £50 gig to play on the weekend. And so I think there's also this idea that people are kind of doing these really sort of glamorous things and earning loads of money. I think it's also important to mention and bear in mind that it's probably not as flashy as people are making out quite a lot of the time. Like, yeah, unless you're Ed Sheeran. But yeah, a lot of this stuff, and mentioning Ed Sheeran, like, one of his things has been that every day he would write 2 songs, and I think that is the mundane aspect that we don't necessarily discuss too much around this stuff. It's about like fitting stuff in and trying to be regular and trying to as much as you can fit around your life and your other priorities, fit in some amount of time to spend on your instrument, and you'll hopefully over time see improvements, or improvements in the amount that you enjoy, but focus on really smaller kind of tasks, I think, in these busier phases of your life. I think that's something to bear in mind, I think, anyway, in the light of recent scandals and stuff like that. I think this would be something that would benefit all of us. And, you know, like we say, that there are people that are on different levels anyway, and I don't think that it helps necessarily to polish things when you're already on a super level. Do you know what I mean? Leave in the imperfections if there are some in certain circumstances. And, you know, yes, an album track, you're going to want to be totally perfect, but, you know, does every single post have to be like 150 notes per minute, all perfect, all in time and stuff like that? Maybe not. Equally, you want to present the best of yourself to the world. So it's a whole bunch of different pressures, but something to think about, I guess. Well, that's 10 minutes of your time you're not getting back in it. Well, I'm sorry about that, but yeah, just try and do something each day, and don't be too caught up in this idea that everything has to be the thing. Like, it's showing up and giving it a go, and just enjoying stuff, which really is going to get you further, I think. As I say that, a guy who predominantly mimes TikTok videos is now going on tour with Shaka Khan, so I could be wrong about it all. But I guess there's a lot of other people miming that didn't get that gig either. Who knows?